What is Rassie Rasmus's best Springbok starting 15 from the URC quarterfinals? Now, I did want to put together a 23-man lineup, but it was getting a little bit thin when it came to the bench, so I decided to take from 23 to 15 players. As always, let me know if you agree or disagree with my selections down in the comments. Leave this video a like, and if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. We're on the way to 100,000 subscribers. Let's get into it. Now, it was a pretty successful weekend of URC rugby for the South African clubs. Bulls and Sharks winning, Stormers maybe not having their best performance. So I do think that is going to factor into who I'm selecting here. I'm choosing just on form from the last game in the URC quarterfinals who performed the best. So it's almost like a team of the week, but with South African players. So in that number 1 jersey, you could go for Oxenchair, who had a pretty decent game for the Sharks, but I did think Mchunu came on and changed the game for the Sharks. He was so physical, scrum dominance, his offloads, his ability to get over the gain line and carry the ball. On defense, Mchunu just looked like an absolute animal on that field. You could also go for Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who alongside Volko Low dominated Edinburgh scrum. Jan-Hendrik Wessels has really come into his own over the past season or so, and I definitely think we're going to be seeing quite a lot of him in a Springbok jersey. But for me, in that number 1 jersey is Mchunu. Moving into that hooker position, and I think there's only 2 guys who really stand a chance here, and that's Bongi Mbonambe and Johan Grobler. Now, I think Bongi had an absolutely phenomenal game. So did Johan Grobler. I just think Bongi outperformed him slightly. I think Johan Grobler probably a 7 out of 10, and Bongi Mbonambe an 8 out of 10. I mean, he has the hands of a scrum half, a speed of a winger, and then he can scrum like a madman. His line-out throw-ins were also good. He got over the gain line. His passing and offloads were beautiful. I think that's probably one of the best games we've seen Bongi play in quite a while. He really stepped up for that Sharks outfit, and for me, Bongi wears the number 2 jersey. Into that number 3 jersey, and I think there's only one man who will be taking the spot, and that is Volko Low, the absolute chief destroyer for the Bulls. He made Piers Kuman look like a little schoolgirl in that game against Edinburgh in the scrums. His defense was solid. His carries were good. I just don't see how we can leave Volko Low out of a Springbok 23-man side when he's scrumming like that. Can you imagine having Ox, Volko Low, Bongi Mbonambe or Malcolm Marx, and then you still got so much firepower on the bench in the likes of a Vincent Koch, a Thomas du Toit, and I'm leaving a whole bunch of guys out there. Just can't think of them off the top of my head. But Volko Low, number 3. Neertling Forshire was maybe one of the bright spots for the Stormers in that performance against the Glasgow Warriors. But for me, Volko Low takes that number 3 spot. Into the lock department, and I think there's only one guy who's going to be wearing that number 4 jersey. Eben Etzebeth led the Sharks out. He was captain. He's a record cap holder. The battle between him and Jean Klein was something to really keep an eye on, and he dominated that battle. Eben Etzebeth is arguably one of the best rugby players to have ever played the game, and I think he's kind of like a fine wine. He just keeps getting better and better with age. He left the game with a shiner. He was very involved, and I think Eben Etzebeth, I mean, there's a reason he's the most capped Springbok of all time. He's going to be carrying that torch into the 2027 Rugby World Cup. Then, in that number 5 jersey, now, no one really impressed me in that number 5 jersey. I mean, you had Salman Murat, who went off with an HIA. You had Jason Jenkins, who also went off for an injury. You do have JF van Heerden, who could potentially get in there, but I don't think he had a fantastic game. For me, I'm going to go with Ruan Nokia. Now, Ruan Nokia did play in the 7 jersey for the Blue Bulls, but we do know that Rassie Rasmus likes to use him in that lock position. So for me, I'm going to go for Ruan Nokia. He lost the battle against Jamie Ritchie early on, but eventually he did get the upper hand in that game. He was crucial in sort of getting the Bulls back into that game, his leadership, his line-out calls. He is just a very well-rounded rugby player. And again, that utility that he offers in being able to play that lock position as well as that flank position, we know how much Rassie Rasmus likes that. So Ruan Nokia, find of the Springbok season last year, can play 5, can play 7, but I'm going to put him in that number 5 jersey for this team. Then into the loose forwards. Now, the number 6s did not impress me that much. You got James Venter, who put in a very solid performance for the Sharks. Didn't do anything wrong, but I think in a team of superstars, you really have to outperform yourself for people to really take notice. James Venter did nothing wrong. He had a decent performance for the Sharks, but I just didn't think it was good enough to beat out the likes of Marcel Coetzee or Paul de Villiers. Marcel Coetzee, again, maybe just did the bare minimum, just scraped over the line. And I actually think Paul de Villiers had the best game out of the number 6s from South Africa over the weekend. He was beastly at the breakdown, which included winning a huge turnover when his team were under pressure, and was perhaps unlucky on a couple more occasions not to be rewarded. Paul de Villiers is going to be one to watch, and in a team like the Stormers who didn't perform that well in the quarterfinals, to stand out like that is a very good performance. So Paul de Villiers in that number 6 jersey. Then moving on into that number 7 jersey, I'm going to go for Vincent Chichuka. Now, the big flanker will remember with fondness the 2 massive hits that he made in that game. He also threw a couple of ridiculous offloads, one of them to Ethan Hooker, and then Ethan Hooker went and scored at the try for the Sharks, a fantastic try by Ethan Hooker. But I really feel like Vincent is coming into his own. He's a massive ball carrier. He's great on defense. He was phenomenal for the Sharks, and I think he was the best performing 7 besides Ruan Nokia, who I've put into lock from the South Africans this weekend. We then move into that 8 position, and I don't think there's any debate here. I don't think Sia had a game to remember. Cameron Hanekom is just an absolute freak of nature, a beast. We haven't seen a player like Cameron Hanekom in a while. He's one of those guys where I think everyone in that Bulls team looks towards him to sort of change the game. He is the game changer. And when he's not on the field, it was good to see that the Bulls side could kind of operate without him, but he is that game changer. He's that guy that can flip a switch, beat anyone on a tackle, change the game, turn over a ball, make a massive hit. And I think Cameron Hanekom is probably leading the race for that Springbok 8 jersey at the moment. We then move over into the back line. And in that number 9 jersey, I don't think any of the scrum-offs really had a great game. Embrus Papier for the Bulls. Jaden Hendricks, I don't think, had a great game. And then Stefan Ungara for the Stormers was also a little bit underwhelming. I might get some criticism for saying this, and some people might agree with me. But Bradley Davids, I know he played about 30 seconds of extra time and they only brought him on to kick. So we didn't get to see much of his game. But when you're talking about a 21-year-old not playing in the whole game, being asked to step up and kick for poles in an extremely high-pressure situation, kick both of his kicks over. I know so did Jaden and Jordan, and Bradley kicked the last one over to win the game for them. The amount of confidence you have to have in your game, the amount of BMT you have to have at that younger age to handle that much pressure, maybe just shows the character of Bradley Davids. Shows what we could maybe see in the future from Bradley Davids. So yes, you could go with the Jaden, you could go with Embros, you could go with Stefan. But for me, I'm going to give this form award for the number 9 jersey to Bradley Davids over this last weekend. Moving into that fly-off position, and I mean, I don't think any fly-off between the Stormers, Sharks, and Bulls had a scintillating game. Sasha struggled. We covered that in our URC roundup. Marnie Lebourg came on and probably did a slightly better job than Sasha. Jordan Hendrickse had a good game, but nothing that really changed the game. Jordan Hendrickse always has good games. So for him to outperform himself is very difficult. It's kind of like that Sasha curse. Not a curse, but our standards for Sasha is so high so that when he doesn't perform to them, you kind of think that he had a bad game. For me, I'm actually going to give the 10 to Keegan Johannes. He grew into the game. I think he really showed the potential of a candidate for Blue Bulls fly-off. His tries seemed to sort of be the points of difference in that Bulls game where everything started shifting. So I'm going to give it that 10 position to Keegan Johannes, and that might be slightly controversial. Some people might argue with me on that, but that's the way I'm going. Number 11, I'm going to go for Sabelo Senatla. Now, you could argue that Makazole Mapimpi had a great game. The only reason I'm not giving it to him is because he did cost the Sharks one try when he slipped. Not his fault, he slipped, but that is what happened. Sabelo Senatla, in a struggling Stormer side in the URC quarterfinal, was the guy to stand up. I know he got sin-binned, but for me, he stood out. He never stopped. I think he scored 2 tries. Yeah, he scored 2 tries, never stopped working. Sabelo Senatla back on the map. Then that center combination, I'm going to go with Andre Esterhuizen at 12. He was just an absolute wrecking ball up the middle. Whenever the Sharks wanted to get over the gain line, whenever they needed some momentum, Andre Esterhuizen was their man. 13th position, I don't think in the outside center position, not too many guys stood out to me. You got Lekanyu who had his 100th cap. You got David Creel, and then you got Suleiman Hudson-Bach. I definitely think David Creel performed the best out of those 13s. You could argue that Ethan Hooker could potentially shift into that 13th position, but I'm going to go with David Creel. 14, only one man for the job, and that is Ethan Hooker. Phenomenal game. Great under the high ball, scored a try, great on defense, ended up winning man of the match in that Sharks game. Definitely one for the future. And in that 15 jersey, I'm going to go for Willie Leroux, playmaking specialist. He didn't have the greatest of starts to the game, but he definitely ended the game on an extremely high note. So that's how I see Rassie's Springbok starting 15 from the quarterfinals lining up. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. Leave this video a like, and as always, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.